The Gentle Giant's captain, Elena Vasquez, was enjoying her morning coffee aboard the research vessel Peaceful Dawn when the emergency beacon started flashing. She had been observing the beautiful nebula formations near the Kepler system, documenting new star births for the Galactic Scientific Council. It was quiet work, the kind humans had been doing for the past 4,000 years since the Great Peace began. The message that came through the quantum relay made her coffee cup slip from her fingers. Mayday, Mayday, this is Colony Ship New, Hope from the Centauri Garden Settlement. We are under attack by unknown vessels. They're destroying everything. Please, if anyone receives this. The transmission cut to static. Elena stood motionless for a moment, then walked calmly to her command console. Her fingers moved across the controls with practiced ease as she contacted Earth Central Command. Within minutes, her screen showed the concerned face of Admiral Sarah Chen, a woman who had spent her entire career managing peaceful exploration missions. Elena, we're getting similar reports from 12 other colonies, Admiral Chen said, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. 3 species calling themselves the Crimson Collective have declared war on humanity. They claim we're too soft to deserve our territories. Elena nodded slowly, a strange smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Admiral, what are our orders? Return to Earth immediately. We're calling an emergency session of the Galactic Peace Council. As the transmission ended, Elena's crew gathered around her. They were scientists, teachers, artists, people who had known nothing but peace their entire lives. Yet somehow, they all wore the same curious smile that had appeared on Elena's face. Captain, asked Dr. James Wright, her chief researcher, why am I not afraid? Elena looked at her crew, seeing the same calm determination in their eyes that she felt in her own heart. I don't know, James. But I think we're about to find out. Meanwhile, on Earth, Ambassador Chen Wei was having the strangest diplomatic meeting of his career. The representatives of the Crimson Collective sat across from him in the Grand Conference Hall of New Geneva. There was Ambassador Krax of the Thorian Empire, a massive creature with red scales and 4 muscular arms. Beside him sat General Vexus of the Nightfall Legion, whose black armor seemed to absorb light itself. The third member, Prime Huntress Zara of the Bloodclaw clans, had sharp claws and eyes like burning coals. They had just finished listing their demands: complete surrender of all human colonies, Earth to become a tribute world, and humanity to serve as laborers for their expanding empires. Chen Wei listened to it all with polite attention, taking notes on his tablet. When they finished, he smiled warmly and poured tea for everyone. That's quite an interesting proposal, he said gently. Would you like some cookies while we discuss this? The aliens stared at him in disbelief. Ambassador Krax's 4 arms tensed with anger. Human, did you not hear us? We have destroyed 12 of your colonies. Your people are dead or captured. Chen Wei's smile never wavered as he offered a plate of chocolate chip cookies. Yes, I heard. Tragic, really. But these things happen. Would you prefer Earl Grey or chamomile? General Vexus slammed his armored fist on the table. What is wrong with you? We are at war. Are we? Chen Wei asked pleasantly. I thought we were just having a conversation. More tea? As the frustrated aliens left the meeting, they could hear Chen Wei humming a gentle tune while he cleaned up the tea service. Deep beneath the streets of Geneva, in archives that hadn't been accessed for 4 millennia, something was stirring. Dr. Marcus Thompson, Earth's leading historian, had received a strange message on his personal communicator. The message was simple. Heritage Protocol standby. Report to Archive Level 0 immediately. Marcus had never heard of Archive Level 0, but somehow his keycard worked on elevators he'd never seen before. As he descended deeper than he knew was possible, his mind felt oddly calm. When the elevator doors opened, he found himself in a vast underground complex filled with technology that looked nothing like the peaceful tools humanity had used for 4,000 years. A holographic figure materialized before him. It appeared to be human, but wore a uniform Marcus didn't recognize. The hologram's face was kind but carried something else, something that reminded Marcus of old wolves who had chosen to be gentle. "Dr. Thompson," the hologram said, "I am General Patricia Stone, last commander of the Terran Defense Force. If you are seeing this message, it means someone has threatened humanity as a whole." Marcus found himself speaking without thinking. "The Crimson Collective has declared war and attacked our colonies." The hologram nodded sadly. "Then it is time to remember what we chose to forget. Doctor, 4,000 years ago, humanity made a choice. We had become the galaxy's greatest warriors, but we grew tired of war. We were too good at it, you see. Too efficient. Too thorough." Images began appearing around Marcus. Vast fleets of ships unlike anything in modern human space. Weapons that could crack planets, battles fought across entire star systems. But what struck him most was the faces of the humans in these ancient recordings. They looked just like people he knew, but there was something in their eyes that modern humans had lost. "We won every war we fought," General Stone continued. "But winning became too easy, and we realized we were becoming something we didn't want to be. So we made a pact. We would put away our weapons, lock away our military knowledge, and choose to be gardeners instead of warriors." "But," Marcus whispered, understanding flooding through him, "we kept the locks just in case." The hologram smiled, and Marcus saw in that smile the same expression that was appearing on human faces across the galaxy. "Exactly. We became the galaxy's protectors by choosing not to fight. But if someone threatens what we protect..." As if on cue, alarms began sounding throughout the complex. Ancient systems that had slept for 4 millennia began coming online. Lights flickered on in vast chambers filled with technologies that current humanity couldn't even comprehend. "Counter Heritage Protocol is activating," General Stone explained. "Every human in the galaxy is about to remember what we chose to forget. I'm sorry, Doctor. We hoped this day would never come." Across human space, people were experiencing the strangest sensation of their lives. Farmers on agricultural worlds found themselves understanding tactics they'd never studied. Teachers in schools suddenly knew how to organize evacuation plans with military precision. Artists discovered they could design things that had never occurred to them before, things that hummed with dangerous purpose. Captain Elena Vasquez was halfway back to Earth when her ship's computer chimed with an unusual message. "Captain, I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout human space. It appears dormant systems are activating on every human world simultaneously." Elena nodded, unsurprised. She had been expecting this somehow. "Computer, run a deep scan of our own ship. Look for anything that wasn't in the original blueprints." The scan revealed what Elena already knew she would find. Hidden throughout her peaceful research vessel were systems she had never seen but somehow understood perfectly. Weapon systems that could level cities, shields that could withstand stellar explosions, engines that could cross the galaxy in days instead of months. "Captain," Dr. Wright said quietly, "I'm reading similar discoveries from every human ship in the fleet. It's like our vessels were always warships pretending to be something else." Elena looked out at the stars and felt a profound sadness. They had been so peaceful, so gentle. For 4,000 years, humanity had chosen kindness over conquest, cooperation over conflict, but someone had made them remember what lay beneath that choice. On the colony world of New Harmony, the first human civilians to be attacked by the Crimson Collective were displaying behavior that confused their captors. Instead of panic or despair, the prisoners sat quietly in their holding cells. They shared their food with each other, comforted the frightened children, and organized themselves into efficient groups without any apparent leadership. Colonel Drax of the Thorian forces was studying security footage of the human prisoners when his aide approached nervously. "Colonel, the humans are doing something strange." On the monitors, Drax watched as the prisoners had somehow organized themselves into what looked like military units. They moved with precision, communicated through subtle gestures, and maintained a discipline that his own troops couldn't match. Most disturbing of all, they were smiling. "How are they doing this?" Drax muttered. "These are farmers and shopkeepers, not soldiers." His aide pointed to another monitor. "Sir, it's not just the prisoners. Look at this. The screen showed the colony's remaining population. Despite their homes being destroyed and their families captured, they moved through the ruins with calm efficiency. They rescued the wounded, salvaged supplies, and built temporary shelters. But most unnervingly, they worked in perfect coordination without any visible communication. It's like they share one mind, the aide whispered. Colonel Drax felt a chill run through his scales. In 40 years of military service, he had conquered dozens of species. He had seen fear, rage, desperation, and despair. But he had never seen an entire population respond to invasion with this kind of eerie calm. On Earth, the Galactic Peace Council had called an emergency session. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered to discuss the crisis. Most expected humanity to plead for help or demand military intervention against the Crimson Collective. Instead, Ambassador Chen Wei stood before the assembly with the same gentle smile he had worn during his meeting with the attackers. "Honored delegates," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. "Humanity thanks you for your concern during this difficult time. However, we must inform you that the situation is being handled internally." A murmur of confusion ran through the assembly. Ambassador Thren of the Peaceful Aquarian Federation raised a webbed hand. "Ambassador Chen, surely you cannot handle this alone. The Crimson Collective has superior numbers and firepower." Chen Wei's smile grew slightly wider. "Do they? How interesting. We hadn't really looked into that yet." Ambassador Korvath of the Mineral Lords leaned forward, his rocky features showing concern. "Humanity has been peaceful for 4 millennia. You have no military, no weapons, no experience with war." "That's quite true," Chen Wei agreed pleasantly. "We've been very committed to peace. It's been one of our finest achievements." "Then how can you possibly defend yourselves?" demanded Ambassador Vril of the Stellar Confederacy. Chen Wei was quiet for a moment, his expression thoughtful. When he spoke again, there was something in his voice that made several ambassadors shift uncomfortably in their seats. "We appreciate your concern, truly. But you see, there's something you all need to understand about human peace. We didn't become peaceful because we were weak. We became peaceful because we were very, very good at the alternative." The chamber fell silent. For the first time in 4,000 years, the other species of the galaxy remembered why their ancestors had been so relieved when humanity chose to become gardeners instead of conquerors. "The Heritage Protocol is now active," Chen Wei continued, his gentle smile never wavering. "We tried very hard to avoid this day. We locked away our nature, buried our instincts, and chose to tend gardens instead of wage wars. But someone has decided to threaten our gardens." He looked around the assembly, and every ambassador felt the weight of ancient memories stirring in their species' collective consciousness. "We want you all to know that we harbor no anger toward the Crimson Collective. They simply didn't understand what they were waking up. In a few days, when this is over, we'll go back to being the same gentle humans you've known. We'll tend our gardens, write our poetry, and explore the universe with wonder and joy." Chen Wei paused, his smile taking on an edge that made the temperature in the room seem to drop. "But first, we have to remind 3 species why their ancestors agreed to 4,000 years of peace. The Awakening Protocol. The transformation of humanity didn't happen all at once. It began quietly, like dawn breaking across a sleeping world. Dr. Marcus Thompson emerged from Archive Level 0 with knowledge that felt both foreign and familiar flooding his mind. He understood now why every human in the galaxy was smiling the same mysterious smile. They weren't smiling because they were happy. They were smiling because they remembered. On the industrial world of New Pittsburgh, factory supervisor Hannah Rodriguez received a priority message from Earth. The message was simple: implement Emergency Manufacturing Protocol 7. Hannah had never heard of Protocol 7, but when she accessed her factory's central computer, she found files that had been waiting for 4,000 years. The production lines that had been making farming equipment and civilian goods began reconfiguring themselves. Automated systems that Hannah didn't even know existed came online. Within hours, her factory was producing devices that hummed with contained power and purpose. "What exactly are we making?" asked her assistant Tom Chen as he watched sleek objects roll off the assembly line. Hannah picked up one of the devices. It was beautiful in its simplicity, no larger than her hand, but she could feel the energy contained within it. Somehow, she knew exactly what it was and how to use it. "Emergency supplies," she said with that same gentle smile. "Things we hoped we'd never need again." Across human space, similar scenes were playing out on thousands of worlds. On the agricultural planet of Green Valley, farmers were discovering that their irrigation systems could be reconfigured into something far more sophisticated. The same networks that had brought water to crops could deliver other things with pinpoint accuracy across entire continents. On the ocean world of Blue Harbor, fishing crews found that their sonar systems could map not just seafloors, but the exact position of every ship within a dozen star systems. Their nets, designed to catch fish with gentle precision, could be adapted for other kinds of catching. The Crimson Collective was beginning to notice these changes, but they didn't understand what they were seeing. General Vexus received reports from his intelligence division that confused him deeply. "Sir," his aide reported, "human activity has increased across all their worlds, but we can't determine what they're doing. They're not building obvious weapons or fortifications, they're just modifying things." General Vexus studied the surveillance footage from human worlds. People moved with the same calm efficiency they had always shown, but there was something different now. They worked in perfect coordination, as if following some unspoken plan. "What kind of modifications?" he asked. "Sir, they're changing everything. Civilian factories, farm equipment, research stations, even children's playgrounds. But the modifications don't match any known weapon systems." This was exactly what worried General Vexus. In his experience, when an enemy did something you couldn't understand, it meant they were much more dangerous than they appeared. On the research station orbiting Jupiter, Dr. Sarah Kim was experiencing the strangest day of her scientific career. She had been studying quantum mechanics for 30 years, but now her mind was filled with applications of quantum theory that no university had ever taught. She stood before a massive particle accelerator that had supposedly been designed for basic research. But as she ran her hands over its controls, she realized it had always been much more than that. The accelerator could do things that would make entire fleets of warships irrelevant. "Dr. Kim," her assistant called out, "we're receiving the same signals from every research facility in human space. They're all activating systems that aren't in any of our manuals." Sarah nodded calmly. She wasn't surprised. "Tell them to proceed with full activation. It's time we remembered what we built these stations to really do." The Crimson Collective made their next move 3 days after the Heritage Protocol activated. They launched a massive assault on the core human worlds, expecting to find panicked civilians and overwhelmed defense forces. Instead, they found something that would haunt their species for generations to come. The first sign that something was wrong came when their invasion fleet dropped out of hyperspace near Earth. Admiral Krax expected to see a planet desperately trying to mount a defense with whatever civilian ships they could hastily convert. Instead, he saw Earth surrounded by a perfect sphere of vessels that seemed to have materialized from nowhere. They weren't the familiar exploration ships and research vessels humanity was known for. These were something else entirely, sleek, dark shapes that seemed to bend light around themselves. "Where did they come from?" Admiral Krax demanded of his sensor operator. "Sir, I don't know. They weren't there when we entered the system, but our sensors insist they've been in position for hours. The human fleet made no aggressive moves. They simply waited, arranged in mathematical precision around their homeworld." Admiral Krax opened a communication channel, expecting to offer terms of surrender. Instead, he heard a calm, familiar voice. It was Ambassador Chen Wei, but he was no longer wearing diplomatic robes. He wore a simple black uniform that somehow made him look far more dangerous than any armor could. "Admiral Krax," Chen Wei said pleasantly, "welcome to the Sol system. We've been expecting you. Surrender now, and your people will be treated with mercy," Admiral Krax growled. Chen Wei's smile was gentle and absolutely terrifying. "Oh, Admiral, I think there's been a misunderstanding. We're not here to surrender, we're here to give you a choice." What choice? You can leave now, return to your people, and forget this ever happened. Or you can stay and learn why your ancestors spent 4,000 years being very, very grateful that humans chose to be peaceful. Admiral Krax felt anger surge through him. You threaten us? You have perhaps 1,000 ships, we have 10,000. Numbers are interesting things, Chen Wei mused. But I wonder, have you ever asked yourself why in all your studies of galactic history, there's a 4,000-year gap in records of human military activity? The truth was, Admiral Krax had wondered about that. Every species in the galaxy had continuous military records going back tens of thousands of years, but human military history simply stopped 4 millennia ago, as if they had suddenly decided to become an entirely different species. We became peaceful, Admiral Krax said, though doubt was creeping into his voice. Yes, we did. Chen Wei agreed. But Admiral, we didn't become peaceful because we lost a war. We became peaceful because we won every war. We became peaceful because continuing to fight would have meant there would be no one left in the galaxy to fight. As if responding to some invisible signal, the human ships began to move. They didn't attack or adopt aggressive formations. Instead, they began to demonstrate capabilities that should have been impossible. Ships vanished and reappeared instantly on the other side of the system. Others seemed to phase through solid matter as if it wasn't there. Some appeared to be manipulating gravity itself, creating fields that bent space around them. This is impossible, Admiral Krax whispered. These technologies don't exist. They do now, Chen Wei said sadly. We had hoped they never would again. Admiral, please consider my offer. Leave now and tell your people that humanity wishes them no harm. But also tell them that we are no longer the gentle gardeners they thought we were. We remember now what we chose to forget. Admiral Krax found himself in the most difficult position of his military career. His ships outnumbered the humans 10-1, but he was looking at technology that made numbers irrelevant. More importantly, he was looking at a species that had just admitted they had voluntarily given up weapons that could have conquered the galaxy. What happened to the species that made you become peaceful? He asked quietly. Chen Wei's expression grew infinitely sad. They learned the same lesson. You're about to learn, Admiral. Some sleeping giants should never be awakened. The battle, when it came, lasted exactly 17 minutes. The Crimson Collective's 10,000 ships found themselves facing opponents who had been designing weapons and tactics for longer than their civilizations had existed. Humanity had spent 4,000 years choosing to be gentle, but underneath that choice lay the accumulated military wisdom of a species that had never lost a war. Ships that could phase through matter made armor irrelevant. Weapons that could manipulate quantum fields made shields useless. Most devastating of all, humans fought with a coordination that seemed impossible, as if every ship, every weapon, every soldier was part of a single vast intelligence. But what truly broke the Crimson Collective wasn't the technology or the tactics. It was the realization that throughout the entire battle, not a single human voice showed anger or hatred. They fought with the same calm efficiency they had once shown while tending gardens or teaching children. When it was over, Admiral Krax found his flagship intact but completely powerless, floating helplessly among the debris of his fleet. A human ship approached, and Chen Wei's voice came through the communication system. Admiral, you and your surviving crews are free to go. Your ships will be repaired and given enough supplies to reach your home world safely. Why? Admiral Krax asked, his voice broken. Why spare us? Because, Admiral, we are still the same. Humans who chose peace 4,000 years ago. We take no joy in violence, we never did. That's why we put our weapons away. As the Crimson Collective survivors limped home, they carried with them a message that would reshape galactic politics. Forever, humanity had awakened, remembered what they were capable of, and then chosen to go back to sleep. But now every species in the galaxy knew that human peace was not weakness. It was a gift, one that could be taken away if necessary. Dr. Marcus. Thompson stood in Archive Level 0, watching as the ancient systems powered down once again. General Stone's hologram appeared beside him one last time. It's done, she said simply. The weapons are being locked away again. The military protocols are being archived. In a few days, humans will go back to being gardeners and teachers and artists. But they'll remember now, Marcus said. They'll always remember what lies beneath the surface. General Stone nodded. Yes, and so will everyone else. Perhaps that's enough. Perhaps knowing that we choose to be gentle will make that choice more meaningful. As Marcus made his way back to the surface, he felt the weight of knowledge settling into his mind. Humanity would return to its peaceful ways, but they would never again be seen as weak or naive. They had shown the galaxy that their gentleness was not born from inability to be otherwise, but from a conscious decision to be better than they were capable of being. The gardens would bloom again. Children would play in schools that had briefly hummed with deadly purpose before returning to teaching poetry and mathematics. Research stations would go back to studying stars and quantum mechanics instead of ways to make those stars go dark. But in the depths of space, on every human world, in every human heart, the memory would remain. The sleeping giants had awakened, looked upon what they could do, and chosen once again to sleep. And the galaxy would never forget the sight of humanity smiling as they put away powers that could have reshaped the universe, choosing instead to tend their gardens and write their songs and explore the cosmos with wonder rather than conquest. The Crimson Collective's survivors would tell stories of the day they woke the gentle giants. But they would also tell of the mercy shown by beings who could have erased them from existence with a thought, but chose instead to send them home with supplies and a warning. Peace, they learned, was not the absence of the ability to wage war. Peace was having that ability and choosing not to use it. And sometimes when the galaxy looked up at the stars, they would remember that among those points of light were worlds full of gardeners and poets and teachers who had once been the most terrifying force the universe had ever seen and had chosen to become something better. The sleeping giants rested once again, and the galaxy was grateful for their dreams.